Got a question? Ask Tom on Home Show Radio.
This is Home Show Radio live on Facebook and YouTube. Your questions, Tom's answers. Now here's Tom Tynan and Charlie Mosier.
And we do this usually on Thursdays, but today we're doing it on a Saturday because it's an experiment.
No.
Ooh. Virtual home show. Yeah, it is. It's an experiment a little bit, but we could do the regular stuff like this. Thursday afternoons, 4 o'clock, we do Facebook Live. We do YouTube Live. There you go. I got it right this time. And then on Saturday and Sunday, and I just got off the air an hour ago on Sports Radio 610, I do the show live, and tomorrow I'll be doing it live from 8 to 11 on Sports Radio 610 too, and that's Home Show Radio. If you haven't visited our website, homeshowradio.com is the best source to start with because you can listen to the show, and Charlie can help me with this, anytime you want, from Spotify to Captain Kirk. I don't know. What else is in there, Charlie, where they get to podcast it, road brawl it, do whatever you want with the show, right? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I don't know about road brawl.
Road brawl.
Rough.
It's like Roadhouse.
Okay. Maybe that could be tough. No, we have. Hey, Vic, do me a favor and mute yourself because we're getting an echo here for a second. Anyway, we're going to have a guest in a minute. Vic Costa is going to join us here. Let's show you how Vic is dressed today. No, we haven't got a picture of Vic yet because he hasn't got his camera turned on.
Or he might not be dressed. We don't know that.
He may not be decent yet. No, okay. But in any event, we'll get to him. We'll get to him in a minute. He was connected a second ago. We'll work all this out. It's the fun of being live, and we're excited to be part of the Montgomery Home and Garden Show here on their virtual home show. As Tom said, we do this every Thursday, and Tom is, of course, on the radio every Saturday and Sunday with the Home Show Radio. But before he's on Saturday and Sunday morning, Danny Milliken is on with the Home Show Garden Pros. You can catch them every Saturday morning from 7 till 9 a.m. And I know, Tom, you and I have been having a dickens of a time with sod webworms. At least we have. I know you had a little bit. They still
I did. Got it under control with Danny's help, but it was touch and go for a minute. Not like a couple years ago when I lost my whole yard. I'm okay. Whew.
Lucky. Well, I tell you
what. Lucky.
I'll tell
if
you
not, I'd have to dig another pool.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, please don't talk about pools. All right, it's a long story. If you're new to the show, you'll know that there's a constant battle at my house about whether or not we should have a pool. But we're going to leave it aside for now because we're talking about sod webworms. By the way, since we are live, before I get to that, Tom, we should probably mention that we are live here, and that means that you can participate in the show. Just put your comments down in the comments section. Any questions you have, they'll come up here on the screen, and we can share them with you here on the Facebook Live. And Julianne has got a question for us asking, are we on the Zoom? No, we wouldn't Zoom you, Julianne. No, we're only on Facebook today. We on Thursdays when we normally do the show, we're also on YouTube Live, but today only on the Facebook and only for the folks here that are part of the Montgomery County Home and Garden Show, the virtual Home and Garden Show. So anyway, we were talking about sod webworms a moment ago. And before you start turning your yard into a chemical waste dump to get rid of them, Danny Milliken put together this video to explain our organic way of dealing with that problem.
Sod webworms are tiny worms that live in your grass. Usually you always, in the summer months, have an infestation of some kind, but some years it's much worse than others. Signs you might have them might include thinning of the grass, dying in patches, but especially little white moths that fly up from your grass when you walk around, especially in evenings. If you do have those moths, it means you have the caterpillars. It also means you have the eggs. One of the dangers of sod webworms is they're multi-generational, so you'll have the living caterpillar infestation as well as an egg population all in the grass at the same time. It's very important to treat them. If you don't treat them and you have a kind of big infestation, you could lose parts of your whole lawn, if not your whole lawn altogether. There are 3 ways to treat sod webworms. My kind of go-to for a lot of insect problems is molasses. And when it comes to molasses, the big thing is don't spray in the middle of the day. So and if it rains, you got to reapply. But every 2 weeks until you don't see any more moths, it's going to be good for the soil, Follow the label directions for foliar spray. You are spraying the leaves of your grass mostly, so keep that in mind. And then, I always go a little bit heavy with it. The best way to do it is a hose-in sprayer, so that's going to be the easiest way to apply liquid molasses. Second solution to sod webworms is BT. So BT stands for Bacillus thuringiensis. It's a bacteria that's naturally found in soils, and it kills the caterpillars from the inside out, actually decomposes them from the inside. You don't want to do too heavy of a spray too often because it could kill other caterpillars. Some of those are beneficial. So using it once, max twice, super max 3 times. And when it comes to the label, just follow the directions, mix it in water, get it in your hose and sprayer. Again, spraying your lawn is a lot of stuff, so make sure you've got enough BT. My favorite solution is actually mixing the two, mixing molasses and BT together. And when you do that, you just want to keep the rates on the label. You don't have to change anything to make this super mix, but it lasts longer, it's more effective in killing the caterpillars, and it's still good for the soil. So it's kind of got those 3 things that are really helpful in it. For sure, a hose-in sprayer is the way to get it out there. And with this, you can do 2 or 3 applications and you'll solve your webworm problems. If you are seeing those little white moths, take action because they can move really quickly to destroy your space. The things that we listed work really well, but remember, building resilience in the soil is the #1 thing you can do to protect your lawn. So keep that in mind as you're doing what you're doing. But again, act quickly if you have the moths.
So there you go. That's one way to handle those sod webworms. And I will tell you, we've been using that solution in our yard, and it is beating them back when we can beat the rain. I mean, the challenge is with the rain.
True.
All right.
Yeah.
So if you have a question, we'd be happy to help you out. We're live. It's somebody saying we're no live Facebook, and yet I show us broadcasting on there. All right. So I'll tell you what. Let's go to a question. We have a question just came in here from Mike. Mike is one of our regulars, and appreciate you being on the show with us, Mike. Here you go. Mike asks us, Tom, is there a true cost savings with changing to tankless? I have 240 gallons that are 12 years old. I'm thinking about switching. I've heard tankless is maintenance intensive versus a regular tank. Is that a fact?
It's not maintenance intensive. In fact, there's very little maintenance at all. If you have a water softener, there's 0 maintenance. So that would be one thing. The other thing is if you don't have a water softener, like any water heater, there's a little maintenance involved in just keeping it clean and keeping the scale down. And you can follow, depending on the unit you get, the manufacturer's recommendations on how to handle that excess scale that builds up. But as far as that goes, there's no maintenance at all. As far as a big energy saver, especially if you're dealing with with natural gas or propane for that matter, it's not a huge energy savings. It's more of a lifestyle. One is you have all the hot water in the world you want. It just keeps going no matter how, it doesn't run out. So that's a beautiful thing. And when you're not using it at all, then of course you don't pay for any hot water at all because you don't use it. So there's a little bit of savings there, but your tanks today are incredibly efficient too. So when you're not using it, they keep the water pretty hot without having a lot of energy expended to do that. So it's not like 40 or 50 years ago where they were turning on all the time. They don't do that. Now, the last thing is the big expense is going to be to convert from one to the other. And it's probably going to behoove you to go ahead and put one tank in. And then what I would do is get a small booster on demand that will feed off of that. And as the water starts to run low in that one tank when you need a lot, it will kick on and become a heater, an extra heater, a booster heater, so to speak, to keep the water good and hot in case you have a large demand 1 or 2 days.
Now, do you have that kind of system at your house with the booster?
I have exactly that. I've got a 40-gallon water heater. And the reason I did it at the time, and it's gone now, was I had a big soaker tub, and you want to fill that puppy fast, and so it was just an easier way with that soaker tub to do that. It was a 6-foot tub, extra deep. But as far as that goes, I do have a small unit that boosts it up when I do need extra, and I never run out of hot water. But yet you're not keeping, in this gentleman's case, 2 tanks hot all the time, just one. So that's going to be your energy savings.
Yeah. So in the case of changing out from a tank to a tankless water heater, Tom, there are expenses involved in doing that, right?
There are. If you get a small one and you have 2 gas water heaters there, chances are, besides the electrical hookup, which if it's in the attic, it's real easy to tie off to something, just so it has the igniter can ignite. But as far as that goes, a small one is fine. If you get into a big whole house, then you're running in bigger gas lines. You have a big vent system that has to go in. Then it can become quite pricey.
Fair enough. We got another question that's come in. By the way, we're here live today. Tom and I normally will get together and do this every Thursday at 4 o'clock on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Today, we're only on Facebook because we're feeding into the Montgomery County Home and Garden Virtual Home Show. And we're glad to have you with us. But go ahead, put your comments your questions in the comments section. If you just want to say hi, we'd love to know you're watching and being part of the show. We got a question that's just come into us from Jeff, Tom. And he says, is solar panels worth the cost? And he's seen solar panel commercials where the government will reimburse you for free and pay for free solar panels. Wouldn't that be great?
Well, I could make it a simple answer, say, well, if that's the truth, everybody would be doing it. Okay, and I'm sure you don't see a lot of it around. Secondly, Houston usually didn't qualify. The only place I knew that really qualified for the rebates was going to be the Austin area. And I'm not sure what's going on in Austin right now. You got to watch yourself when you go there. So what I would tell you is It's not probably all that you're being marketed. You're going to have a monthly fee to pay for a long time. It's probably going to be a finance. It's going to be an interest on top of it. There's going to be a lot involved with it, and that's why you don't see it done. Not that solar doesn't work. Solar works great, but it's more of a commercial application right now, or solar farms, which I'm down in the valley now in the Brownsville area, and they're putting up solar farms and wind farms everywhere. So this makes a lot of sense if you're making and mass producing power. But for your individual house, it really isn't there yet. And I would tell you this, talk to them. Don't sign anything. It might make you feel better when you find out it's not all what it's meant to be. Ask a lot of questions, but sleep on it before you commit to it.
Yeah, we were last week for Labor Day. Sandy and I took a little drive. We went down went up to Comanche, Texas. I don't know if you know where that is, west of Fort Worth. Then we came down to Fredericksburg and all that. And on our way up to Comanche and coming south of Comanche, coming down toward Fredericksburg, all the far as you see on the horizon was nothing but wind farms running up there. I had no idea Texas was such a wind farm location.
If you drive like I do from Houston to Brownsville, when you get right past Corpus, there are literally thousands and thousands in all of those. They cut out little areas for the farms. So the farms get a little money from it. And the big wind turbines are put in the areas where all the vegetables and fruits and corn and everything are grown, and so they get to double dip a little bit for their land. And it is amazing how many. In fact, there's so many now. We're selling a huge amount to Mexico. Not the turbines, but the electricity produced. Let me make that clear.
Okay, fair enough. I'm just sending a message here to somebody. All right, good. All right, so let's get to what we prepared for all y'all was we brought some questions from our homeshowradio.com website. There's a form there called Ask Tom, where you can send in questions anytime you want. And of course, we welcome your questions here while we're doing the show, but we brought some of those along from this week to kind of give you a taste of the kind of questions we answer every Thursday live with Ask Tom on Facebook. So here's one of them right here, Tom. Greg in Sugarland says, I need to replace my roof and also put in a radiant barrier. He says, do I need to have one done before the other? Does it matter? Is there a correct order to do this kind of thing?
If you're just if you have a wooden deck and you're not doing any stripping of the decking, go ahead and do it any order you want. The sooner you put the radiant barrier in, the quicker you're going to get savings on your electric bill, which is always nice, and your house will be more comfortable. But I would say go ahead and just do it as your budget allows. Now, I will say this. If you have a persistent roof leak, do the roof first if you have to have the choice. And there's another reason behind that. You don't want all that damage. So I will make a little asterisk on that one.
Yeah, and as we've said before, not every roofer is a waterproofer, and that's one of the reasons that Tom recommends Ideal Roofing. So if you got a leak there, you want to make sure you talk to Jim and his crew over there at Ideal Roofing. All right, next question we got for you here, Tom, comes to us from Steve in the Idlewood section of Houston. That's down by U of H. He says, my home was built in 1940, and my wife and I want to remodel it. He says, I have no idea what I want done. Or excuse me, I have an idea. I was channeling my own thoughts for a moment there. He says, I have an idea what I want done, but I have no idea whether my vision is possible or practical. Would my first step be to find an architect to help me tell me whether my vision is doable or not?
It depends on the size of it. If it's not a big project and you don't need an architect, you could just get someone to draw you some plans and go over it with them. I know when we do room additions and, grandmother apartments, or however you want to say it, in-law apartments and stuff, I always recommend go to Trifection. They have a designer. They'll sit with you. They'll design your project, and then they'll run some numbers with it. And then you'll say, oh, wait a minute, that's too much. And then you can sit down. Now, you'll pay them for the service, but I don't think you need a full-fledged architectural office to do something that's fairly simple.
So when you call Jeff Roberts, he's going to be able to give you the whole skinny on design and whether he can build or even add
costs
add
and what that's looking at. Stuff. Yeah.
So you really,
at
that
and,
point,
and if you just want to do that, they'll charge you a fee to do that. But so what? At least it keeps you from getting knee deep and not finishing your project.
Sure enough. All right. Let's get our next question here. Next question for us comes from Tom in Jersey Village. He says, I'm replacing a hand railing and porch banister on my beach house with weather-treated wood. I plan to use 2 coats of good quality paint. So he wonders, Tom, should I use a separate primer for the first coat and paint for the second coat with, paint it with a finishing paint, or 2 coats of paint with paint that has the primer mixed in?
The paint doesn't have the primer mixed in. It sounds like it the way they put it on the cans. They call it self-priming paint. That basically comes down to this. It's a really high quality, good paint. And so 2 coats you're going to do anyway. It's good enough to act as both. So that's what you end up doing if you're going to use that quality paint. Now, a lot of painters and people in the business who want to save a few dollars will get a primer, which could be half the cost per gallon of a self-priming paint. They'll put a pigment in there for the color, and then they'll put the primer down, then they'll come back with the high quality paint, which is twice the cost, and then they'll put that down. But either way is fine. It's only a matter of saving a few dollars.
Now, we are here live on Facebook right now as part of the Montgomery County Virtual Home and Garden Show. I think I've said that in every possible order you can put those words during the show today. But yes. we welcome your questions here on Facebook Live by going down beneath and filling in the comment section with your question. Jack has done that. We've got a question from Jack right now. He says, he wants to know cedar versus pine fencing. Tom, what's best for our area? Which will look good as it ages and which will last longer? And do you know if fence prices have gone up? Imagine they have.
Well, I can tell you, we had a discussion on my show this morning about lumber prices going through the roof. They're looking at 30 to 40% increase on all lumber right now. There's a shortage, and there's going to continue to be a shortage. And with the fires in Oregon and some of the states out west, we're going to have even more of a price increase because all the lumber is burning up right now as a giant forest fire. So as far as that goes, yeah, if you buy high quality cedar right now that's domesticated, it's going to be a lot of money and you're going to have a wait time. So you're going to see people probably go more towards the pine right now because it will be a domestic product and it's good quality. And the pine farms are down here in the south where they're not affected by all of the fires and things. They're down in our area of the country. So right now, I think people are going to be pushing towards a pressure-treated pine as opposed to the cedar for that mere fact right there.
This has been an issue. Now, besides the cedar itself, Tom, you've told me in the past that there's an issue with cedar in and of itself when you choose cedar.
There's a lot of cedar that comes from overseas, mainly Asia. And it's really poor quality. It's not domesticated, and I always tell people buy domestic lumber, buy American lumber. Canadian lumber's okay. That's close to being domestic. But as far as from overseas, it's really lousy. Or in South America, you can end up with all kinds of beetles and termites and all these weird bugs that come from the South America especially. But they also mill it very thin, and it's very weak, and it's very susceptible to rot much quicker than domestic lumber. So I would tell you this, to stick with domestic lumber and be careful of the lumber that's coming from overseas. It's cheap, but you get what you pay for.
We appreciate you being with us here today on Facebook Live as part of the Montgomery County Virtual Home Show. It's funny, you were talking about fencing, and Julianne came in and said, oh, heck, we need a fence on 2 sides of our property, and it's not a small run either. So just get ready. Now, when you build a fence, Tom, you're saying you would use pine on the fence, right?
The last fence I built with my neighbor, he told me just do what I want. It was on one side of my property. I used pressure treated pine, and he got unglued a little bit until I explained to him why I did it. Now, I did build the last part of the fence I built on the other side of the property. My neighbor, who wanted to see the pickets, which I don't care. They paid for half. I don't really care. I said, sure, you want cedar? We'll get you cedar. I'm going to get you good quality cedar. They loved it. But I wouldn't have done it if it was on my side. But since it was on their side, I went ahead and put it in for them. So I did either way, but I did follow my rule in getting good quality American grown cedar and not the stuff from that wasn't domestic.
All right, got a question that's just come in here from Ralph. He says that he's got a plumbing question. He says it takes a long time for water to reach different parts of his house. He has a new water heater, a new water softener, but he's wondering, Tom, what can he do to make the water get, I guess, to where he needs it quicker?
I think he's missing a word in his question. It's hot water. Okay. Because he says he's having a hard time getting water, then we got a problem.
Well, that could be an operator error on my part in reading you.
That's fine. So. But if it's hot water, you can put a circulation pump in, and that way it keeps hot water in the pipe all the time and solves your problem. Abacus Plumbing, if you're in this part of the country, I don't know where everybody's calling from, but you certainly can get it from them and put it in. Don't put more water heaters, just put a circulation pump.
Now, do you have one of those in your house?
No. My house isn't big enough to warrant it. Okay. I have a little house.
All right.
That's paid for, like the one on the prairie.
Your house is on the prairie and it's paid for? Did I hear you right?
Little house on the prairie that's all paid for.
All right. No. Yes. The reason I ask you, these recirculating pipes. So you're saying, Ralph says he's in San Antonio, by the way. So I'm sure call a good plumber over there. And I don't know if we have one that you could recommend. Do you remember who you worked with when we were over there?
It was Jimmy. I kind of remember his last name was the name of his plumbing company. Dang it, if I can remember. If I remember, I'll let you know. But they also do air conditioning and plumbing out there, and they're really good, and he was really a nice guy. But I'll be danged, it was so long ago that if I can remember the name, I can't.
You know, we're shopping right now for an RV, and we found that, I know, that'd be nice. It's to each his own, right? And we looked at a couple different brands, and we saw that one in particular uses a recirculating pump. And you think about it, when you're an RV and you have a limited amount of water in that tank, you want something that's going to help you optimize that hot water. And
makes sense.
We rented one for that trip we were talking about up in Labor Day last weekend. It did not have a recirculating pump. And I want to tell you something. That water, it's cold.
It can't be that cold.
Well,
but hey, real quick before I forget, it's Schaefer Services, Jimmy Schaefer.
Okay, so Ralph, that's who to call over there. Schaefer.
Yeah, my Prevagen kicked in. Thank you.
Prevagen. What does Prevagen have to do with plumbing?
My memory. I didn't Google it. I had memory.
Right. All right.
Prevagen's memory.
We appreciate everybody being here and all the comments you're sending us in and being part of the show here today. And if you have questions for us, we're happy to help you out with them, and we can. You can put them in here below in the at the comment section. That's how we're answering the questions for Ralph and Julianne and everybody else who has been participating in our show here. And remember that Tom is on every weekend on Sports Radio 610. Care to expand?
Yes, I'll be on tomorrow at 8 to 11. I am.
That's your expansion.
And you want me
plan?
to continue?
You want me to keep carrying this?
And Saturday and Sunday from 9 to noon. And Saturday 9 to noon, Sunday 8 to 11 on Sports Radio 610. No, we're supposed to be talking about Montgomery County Home and Outdoor Living virtual show we're doing here. Make sure you tell your friends. Go to textwoodvirtual.com if you haven't, and most of you probably already there. But spread the word. This is the way the home shows are going to be for a while, it looks like, Charlie.
It does indeed. I'm sorry. I'm a little distracted. We're having a little technical issue here in the background, and I'm trying to tend to that. Tom just gets to sit there and answer questions all day. Uh-huh. I'm over here keeping the plates spinning. That's
I'm ready to go make lunch. So, what else are we going to do?
I had lunch before I came over. Maybe that was my mistake. My blood sugar.
Okay, how about this? I got something I wanted to say on this before we go. I'm sure we're going to go here in a couple minutes, right, Charlie? I don't know how long we're doing this.
We're going to go until we're done getting questions. And by the way, Jeff wrote in. He says we crack him up.
Okay, who's Jeff?
Jeff is somebody who's watching the show. He's part of the broadcast here. So.
Okay.
Anyway, so you had something on your mind.
Alternative building techniques, concrete blocks, CMUs, not cinder blocks, they don't exist, or metal buildings. People, those of you who are going to be building homes with the lumber prices going up 30, 40, 50%, I want you to get your designs done, but don't shy away from alternative building methods right now for the next year, because it will keep your costs down. And you can actually afford now a better built home, a different built home, than going with lumber because of the prices and the shortage. I just wanted to bring that up to people. Mueller Steel Buildings can help you do your building. You can talk to some of the masons and use the concrete masonry units like we do on the East Coast for wind and hurricane protection and things like that. And I bet you the costs are going to be similar and maybe some cases less.
All right, fair enough. All right, let's get another question here from our Ask Tom questions here, Tom. This is one about plumbing. Let's see. This question says, we're having problems with our galvanized pipes in our 42-year-old home, and I'm told my two options are replacing my existing pipes with PEX or cleaning the existing galvanized pipes and lining them. How do these compare on price?
You have to find out. I don't like to do prices. I can't tell you it's $18.99 a pound or something like that. As far as that goes, is I would talk to TDT. I would get their pricing on it, and they can also give you a price on repiping. You can talk to other people about repiping, and you can talk about the advantages and disadvantages and find out which is best for you. I do know this, that in most cases, the renewal of the pipe as opposed to repiping the house is a better option to use, but you'll hear a lot of negative stuff because a lot of companies don't have the option to do it. So that's why you want to bring in someone who actually has access to the equipment like TDT, so they can give you an honest opinion on both ways and maybe a combination to get the job done the way you want it done.
Funny you should bring that up, because I just happen to have a video queued up. It's almost like we prepared this, right?
Okay.
That covers this very topic.
You just turn it on, it's just this little dribble that would come out. And if somebody was trying to fill a bathtub or take a shower, forget doing anything else in the house. It just wasn't going to happen. If you try to look through it, you can't see any daylight through this pipe whatsoever.
Galvanized pipes were built to last until they didn't.
We would get the red water stains in our tubs, in our sinks.
You can pretty much rest assured that if your galvanized steel piping system is 25 plus years old, you will have some of these problems.
If you think rust, corrosion, slow water flow, and pinhole leaks sound bad, tearing out the walls to get at the problem can be even worse.
You're going to have holes in your walls, holes in your ceilings. You're going to have dust throughout the entire house.
Even with corrosion and pinhole leaks, galvanized pipes are still strong.
If you were to look at that pipe and you said, there's no way we could rehabilitate that pipe, well, this is what it's going to look like after we get through sandblasting that pipe.
But that sandblasted pipe would develop the same corrosion problem if it weren't for the E in E-pipe.
Epoxy coatings have been around for a long time, and they know that it protects against corrosion.
Every pipe behind every wall is sandblasted and lined with an epoxy coating without tearing out drywall. In the end, it's like having a long-lasting PVC pipe inside of a steel pipe.
You'll never have any corrosion buildup. You'll never have any pinhole leaks. It's a permanent solution.
Remember this? This section of pipe was so corroded it could not be repaired. And what happens if you let corrosion go too far?
And that means that E-pipe is no longer an option. That homeowner now's only option is to repipe their entire house.
Brett acted just in time. The rest of his house has TDT's E-pipe solution.
My wife and I were very excited to see the transformation.
While things look like they did before on the outside, the water comes through freshly renewed pipes on the inside of these untouched walls.
It was a no-brainer decision looking back.
For HomeShowRadio.com, I'm Tom Tynan.
You can find a list of all our Home Show pros at Home Show Radio. Just go to our website, HomeShowRadio.com. If you were to go there right now, for instance, you'd see, you scroll down the page and you see there they all are. And if you want to reach TDT, you can go ahead and click on their button. It'll bring up their page and you can contact them that way. It's just another friendly service, friendly free service of HomeShowRadio.com.
Friendly.
And free.
You'll see us waving all, hey, come on over. I like that. HomeShowRadio.com. You know what's most important, Charlie?
What's that?
No credit card is needed. It is free to you. All of it.
We welcome all deadbeats. You don't need credit to come onto our website, so you're welcome to visit.
Yes.
And you know what you'll find there also? You'll find a lot more of our Ask Tom videos as well. Hey, I got a question that's just come in for us here, Tom. Let me bring this bad boy up here. I got to push this button, then I got to push this button, and this should put it on for us. Why can't I get that to come on? I'm sorry, this has just been one of those days where nothing's working right. Okay, so I'm going to read you the question because I cannot get this thing to appear on the screen for some reason. This is the kind of day it's been here on.
Well, I can't see it anyway, so just read it.
All right. John writes in, he says, my house is about 10 years old, and would a circulator pump help increase the water pressure? Or do you have any suggestions? My sink in the master bath seems slow flow, where the bathrooms on the opposite side of the house are normal.
It's not going to increase water pressure. The only way you really can't increase water pressure if you put a big pump on the house. Somebody's got to bring you the water to, if it's not the same pressure coming in, you're going to end up like you do in air conditioning in the ductwork with a vacuum of no air moving and motors burning up. So it's not going to increase water pressure. Usually a pressure problem, if it's not from who is delivering your water, and it doesn't sound like that's the case because you've got good pressure in other parts of your home, it's a problem with the sizing and placement of the pipes. Or if it's just in one or two fixtures, then it could be the shower heads are clogged, have debris in it, or maybe you want to change your shower head to one that'll flow a little better. And that goes with wherever else you might be using water. It would be in the fixture itself, maybe where the cartridge is, it's got debris in that, so it's restricting the water flow. That could happen, but most importantly, it's usually the pipe sizing.
Right, so this is going to be a more intensive job than just replacing?
I can't just say do this and it's fixed. I mean, if you get into older homes and they start losing pressure throughout, what you end up doing is digging up the front yard, it's usually the front yard, and replacing the supply line to 1 1/4 inches from a 3/4 inch galvanized because of the fact that it's just not going to give it enough flow into the house. So you start off with a problem before it even gets to the house. But as far as that goes, no, I can't give you one answer. This is where you call someone out who's real skilled in doing what they're doing, a good quality plumber to troubleshoot it, and then write down exactly what they feel the problem is. So if you do invest money, you get the results. You're not just spinning your wheels.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I tell you what, we're gonna kind of put, what is it you say? You're gonna put this thing to bed. You're gonna wrap this up.
We're gonna land this airplane
or land this airplane.
All
right.
Either way.
But
Depends
that doesn't mean we're tired of getting your questions. Let me tell you what you do. If you want to get us your questions, we answer questions like this with Tom on Facebook Live. It's Ask Tom Live every Thursday at 4 o'clock, in addition to his Saturday and Sunday radio show. So you can participate in the show that way. But if you want to send in the questions, we also put out Ask Tom videos every day on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, and of course at HomeShowRadio.com. And if you go there, you will find this form. It is the Ask Tom form. You can fill out, you can send in a question for us by clicking on Use Form. If you do that, click, you get this form. And you can add a picture and send that in to us and be part of it. But now we also enable you to send in a video. That's right. If you use your smartphone, you can actually show Tom exactly what you're talking about in real time, or maybe just send us your smiling face asking your question. Whatever trips your trigger, we would love to have you as part of the show. And
make sure the videos are clean. Don't send us any weirdo stuff.
A clean
okay?
video would be good. All right. Okay.
Although Charlie gets to see them first, so
I
maybe
do.
he would like some odd ones.
Wait a minute.
Okay, fine.
Hey, I'm a fragile flower. Be nice. Hey, I got a question came in. I want to wrap up, but Tom's rule is I'll answer questions as long as you're asking them. And I got another one that came in here from Eric, Tom, and he asked, are ridge vents a regional product? While looking at houses for sale in Central Texas, I noticed most have numerous static or mushroom vents instead of ridge vents. Is there a reason for that? Do they not work as well in that kind of climate, Tom?
No, in fact, when I came here to Houston back in 1986 from Florida, where I was able to do a lot of my studying, I was pretty much fresh out of college, a couple of years at the Florida Solar Energy Center, where ridge vents, soffit vents, all this technology was coming out. It's for the entire country. I had a ridge vent on a house in Lake Placid, New York. You'll see them in Chicago. You'll see them in cold climates as well as very warm climates and humid climates too. When you get into the country, especially in a state like Texas, that's not old and established for hundreds of years. It's kind of been developed, and you think it's a long time, but a couple hundred years is not long compared to, say, the New England area and the Northeast, where they have some homes that are 300 years old, and they're new in some cases. So the fact of the matter is you get the local builders who only do one thing. You don't have a bunch of them. They don't stay up with latest technology. They kind of do what they constantly do. When I came to Houston, you didn't see a ridge vent in this town at all. We started talking about on the radio. The industry started to change. But to give you an example why it's not regional, it's for everybody. If you go and call Ideal Roofing, one of our sponsors, and they're a GAF Master Elite Roofing contractor, and they're able to offer you lifetime warranties, long warranties, labor and material, not just from them, but from the manufacturer. One of the requirements to get those from the roofing industry is their ridge vent on your house, because it prolongs the life of the shingle. And they can't give warranties unless you have the best of the best of that kind of scope. So that just shows you that no matter where you are, it is something that should be used everywhere. Whether it is or not, that's going to be a regional per town kind of thing. And it's because you get the same people doing the same thing over and over. Not necessarily bad, but it just never progresses past a certain point.
Well, it's like you say, the moisture, no matter what environment's in, the moisture is going to dampen down what the insulation's able to do. And so I can't imagine there isn't a place where a ridge vent wouldn't make sense.
Well, yeah, and it's not to control heat. It's actually more important in the wintertime. And if you lived in Chicago, for instance, and you didn't have them and you had a warm, humid attic, because warm air collects water, you will start to grow as that goes from freezing at night to warmer during the day to freezing at night. First off, the water is going to start crawling under the shingles because it's getting warm. And then it'll start to freeze again when you get a hard freeze. You'll grow icicles in your attic, which will eventually melt, and it actually can make a ceiling come down in your home. But Charlie, even that percentage of moisture in insulation, will destroy its R value a lot. And then it's not doing you any good. So it's always about moisture control, even in Houston, summer or winter.
You have built a career almost on this very issue. This and a couple of things having to do with air conditioning. I may have been a couple of the tent poles of what you stand for here on Home Show Radio.
Well, I studied in college. My interest was
wait a minute.
Non-air conditioned homes for hot, humid climates.
Hold on a minute. You studied in college? How long is
yes,
that? I didn't.
Yes,
I wasn't aware that was required.
Well, in architecture school, you really don't study, but you just kind of think. But as far as that goes, that was my passion. And I got to do one home here in Magnolia that has no air conditioning, that is passively cooled. The lady that lives there, she was always sick from air conditioning. She loves it. I talk to her once in a while. The house is performing fantastic. But to try to sell it to somebody, hey, I'm going to give you a house with no air conditioning in Houston. Yeah, that didn't fly over so well. So I don't think I got my money's worth out of my education.
Didn't
Go
really
figure.
have the marketing value there. All right. Hey, so why don't you tell all the boys and girls who are assembled here across the fruited Facebook where they can find you on the radio?
They can find me on the radio at Sports Radio 610 in Houston. If you're local, you can listen to us here. You can also listen to us online, and I'll let Charlie help me. I guess Sports Radio 610, they broadcast online, don't they? I know we do with our podcast.
Yeah, they stream
So
it.
there's all kinds of ways to listen to the show, but Sports Radio 610, Houston, Texas, on Saturday 9 to noon, and on Sunday 8 to 11. And let's not ignore our Garden Pro, who is Danny Milliken, from 7 to 9 before I go on the air Saturdays. And we had a video about sod webworms just a few minutes ago here. He's really quite well schooled too. I think he might have studied in college about gardening.
Yeah, in that video is right there on the homepage at Home Show Garden Pros. It looks just like this. So you go there, Home Show Garden Pros, and the video is sitting right there to help you out, because he will tell you that taking care of that soil and is one of your best defenses, and he'll cover all that. And of course, I'll join Tom tomorrow morning. I'm sorry, I got point opposite. I'll join Tom tomorrow at 8 o'clock to answer more of your Ask Tom questions. As little thing we call early edition, before he answers your questions till 11 a.m. Now, with the Texans playing, we're going to get kicked around a little. Time-wise.
A little.
We'll be on early some Sundays when they're playing early, but we're on. Tom's on every Saturday. So go ahead and send us your questions to homeshowradio.com using the Ask Tom form. We'd love to get them, and we'll answer them. And we thank you for being part of this very first Montgomery County virtual home show.
Experiment, like I said.
Experimental. Yes, well, that's us. We're always on the bleeding edge of this kind of thing. So, but we appreciate you being here, and look forward to hearing from you on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, or homeshowradio.com. Have a great Saturday.
Got a question? Ask Tom on Home Show Radio. Home Show Radio. Free advice from a pro who knows. Home Show